What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of The Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. Tonight, I am joined by my two usual co-hosts. First of all, we've got Kyle Henning. How are we doing tonight, Kyle?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Mixed emotions over the last 72 to 96 hours of all kinds of variety of things
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the team, and life in general. But good to go now. Ready to go. Ready to talk about all of the happenings in the tampering period and the little bit of shit we have to talk about that happened before.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Also joining us, Thomas Pike, Mr. Arrowhead. Tom, how are we doing tonight, Tom?
dude, I am in a glass case of emotion on a roller coaster headed straight towards the sea. It's been a weirdly busy couple days for a team that a lot of people were just like, yeah, nothing's gonna happen. It's gonna be quiet. It's been pretty active. Not all of it's been pretty or nice or good, but they've been active. There's
It's been
been a lot of
decently active.
news.
Yeah.
We tried to tell people that this offseason was going to be very much more like the post Bucks Super Bowl offseason than several
Mhm.
of the other off seasons as far as interestingness and moves and decisions.
Yeah.
And so far, we've been right, and it's not over yet.
Yeah, the
Because
craziness is
far from
it's
over.
just begun of the Chiefs offseason so far. Obviously, NFL free agency kicking off today as we're recording this, the start of the legal tampering period. Chiefs have made a multitude of moves even before the tampering period opened up. They were, yeah, like I said, they were very active. They made some big trades, they made some big signings, and we're going to be here to talk about all of it, everything that's gone on so far since the last time we talked, which has been a little bit. It's been over a week and a half or so since
It's the
since
off
the last time
season.
we got
There's
together.
some gaps in what
Yeah,
we have to talk about, so you got to kind of make it work as you can,
exactly.
and also life gets in the way sometimes, so you got to make it work when it works.
That just
Yeah.
happens. Yeah, it happens
Yeah.
sometimes.
It's the flurries, right? It's okay, nothing to talk about, nothing to talk about. Oh God, everything's on fire. Like
Yeah,
that's
all of a sudden we have
how they all
many topics to talk about all at the same time. So let's get into it. Let's dive into the Chiefs offseason so far. Kicking off with the biggest news so far, one of the bigger trades
Mm.
in the Chiefs' recent memory. The Chiefs trading away Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears in exchange for a 2026 fourth round pick. So the Bears get a very big pickup. They've been very active in rebuilding their offensive line, and the Chiefs
Mhm.
save. I think I saw 19 million in cap space that the Chiefs saved, maybe 16 million, somewhere around there. Get back
Yeah.
a future fourth round pick for Joe Thuney, who cannot say enough great things about Joe Thuney and what he's meant for this team the past 4 years. Probably maybe one of the greatest free agent signings in Kansas City Chiefs history, if you really look at it. The guy
I would
came in, absolutely stabilized the left guard position, helped us win 2 Super Bowls, been
Stabilize
nothing
the
but
whole offensive line.
automatic. Yeah, like adapted last year, played left tackle for us, like just an absolute stud, So
Mhm.
um, was maybe a little bit of a surprising move that we kind of could see coming when the Chiefs franchise tagged Trey Smith. Can't really,
Mhm.
they have a lot of investments on the offensive line with that and Creed Humphrey they paid and Jawan Taylor. It's a big contract still, and Joe Tooney's
Mhm.
deal was always it was a 5-year deal he signed initially, but it was really always kind of a 4-year with a fifth, kind of funny deal. There was never really going to play on that 5th year. It would be an extension or he would be traded. So,
Mhm.
initial thoughts of trading away Joe Thuney, who, like I said, probably one of the greatest free agent signings in Chiefs history.
Well, first of all, uh, thank you to Joe. Is the first thought I have when I saw it. I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of what I expected, but also I hate it, but I get it. Um,
Mhm.
Thank you for, as Garrett mentioned, coming in and stabilizing a left side that has been anything but stable at a lot of points since Eric Fisher left.
Mhm.
Um, you know, playing out of position, being asked to do the impossible and doing it as best as you physically could, and Yeah, we all watched the Super Bowl. That's not on him, and I will never put that on him. Like I've said before, that goes to somebody I'm unfortunately going to have to talk about a hell of a lot this offseason, and Andy Heck, and on Andy Reid for not adjusting when it was very evident that it needed to be adjusted in that game. But he did everything and then some that you could have ever asked from him. And as Garrett mentioned, one of the best free agent signings that we've seen in franchise history, probably. I would not be surprised that if one day he's in the ring for Kansas City.
I would bet.
He makes a real legit argument for the all-time Chiefs offensive line at left guard, and that's not an easy thing to do with the guy he's trying to knock out of that spot. So, and he was always, Garrett talked about the contract. He restructured like every freaking year for them, basically, at different points in the season to help them out and help them bring in more people and more stuff. Oh, he's getting cash faster. Yeah, that's not all of it. That is that. Some of that is giving up some of the security and some of the stuff for the future and all of those things. So, team guy, locker room guy. Obviously, he was a robot in public, but I know that offensive line room really loved him. He was a leader in that room. He helped Creed and Trey become what Creed and Trey are for two extraordinarily young rookie guys coming in, especially in Trey's case, who didn't get to play a ton at Tennessee because of all the health stuff. It was just so important to have him, and what he did for that whole group, especially that interior three that became easily one of the best in the league for many years, was so crucial, and just can't thank him enough. And he's going to play well in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be fine. He's also older. And this league, it's one of the reasons that the Patriots were successful for so long. A year early than a year too early than a year too late, and there was no way to keep him on the current one, so you're either going to have to extend him. They decided to trade him. I understand the trade. I appreciate the trade. They got something back for him. Now it's not enough. He's a guard. At the end of the day, it's a guard.
Yeah, it's an older guard
on a big contract, and he's older.
I mean, they gave him a good little extension too. So I mean, paying that contract, yeah.
You got something for him. You got to keep the younger person that's at the same type of position and have a chance to extend him because of it. There's a lot of moving parts to it, but it makes a ton of sense, and I have no issues with it. It actually makes sense for the philosophy of a year or two early than a year or two late, unlike another free agent we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle hit it on the head. There's not a lot I want to add other than, again, Joe deserves all the respect and praise that he gets, and then some. I hope that he feels appreciated by Chiefs Kingdom, and it's been, him coming in has been a huge part of the dynasty that they made. Right, coming off that loss to Tampa Bay, there were a lot of questions, and he was the first big move, and in a season that retooled. But similarly to how that offseason started. Kyle alluded to there being some parallels. I mean, that offseason saw the Chiefs move on from Eric Fisher and Mitch Schwartz.
Neither one by choice necessarily, but
yeah, well, they were both contract issues and injuries and contracts, right? Both of them had
mostly injuries. Contracts were less,
mostly injuries, and we saw Mitch hang it up. And Eric tried to play. I think he played another season or two, maybe with the Colts, or he played with the Colts.
It didn't go well.
And it just wasn't the same. But they had to move on, and so sometimes those tough decisions, and that's where you get into the phase of restocking. But yeah, I think the leadership piece is going to be huge, and I think that it's they're now looking at this is a line that's going to be led by Creed and Trey, who a couple years ago they came in and they were the guys. I mean, they're the guys now who have the long-term stability. Assuming a deal with Trey gets done, and by every indication, that's what the team wants, and sounds like that's what he wants. Those guys are going to be the leaders now, and so Joe's DNA, his fingerprints are going to be on their leadership style, on what they do, and how they move forward, and so I think the impact he had just in showing them how to be pros and how to do go about their business and that type of thing is going to be felt for for a long time. And yeah, compensation, I'm fine with it. Draft pick next year. I know the Chiefs are, like they probably. I mean, they could have. They could have probably got a day 3 pick or something this year. We'll talk about this more as the offseason goes, but this isn't the draft class to stockpile draft picks in.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take a pick next year. I don't know again how much say Joe got and where he went. I know Chicago's not a terrible. I mean, they're investing in that offensive line. They paid him. It's not a bad place to be right now. Young quarterback, all that stuff. So I think it's a good end result for everybody involved, but it's hard. And with a lot of other moves that we will, probably have this offseason, I don't like it, but I understand it.
Yeah, definitely. It always sucks when you lose such a caliber of player that Joe Thuney is, and it's tough because like the whoever replaces him at left guard, which we'll talk about, it's going to be a downgrade, no matter what. So it's tough, but you're prioritizing paying the younger Trey Smith, taking some of that money and investing in the future. So shout out to Joe, though. Shout out to Joe Thuney. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day, more than likely. He's a 4-time Super Bowl champion, played in like 6 Super Bowls, I think, a couple All Pros and Pro Bowls to his name. Like he's going to be remembered as a really good player. So happy to have had him here. Happy to have had him help rebuild this offensive line and reshape the culture and be part of the dynasty, the first star of this dynasty. So definitely will always have very fond thoughts of Joe Thuney and wish him the best of luck out there in Chicago, which gave him a little bit of a pay bump, which is nice. They got a big renaissance going over there for as far as the reshape of the offensive line. He's going to be right back at it of helping rebuild that. So as Kyle rejoins us, welcome back, Kyle. So yeah, that was the first big kind of move of the Chiefs offseason. A couple days later, there was a couple pieces of news in the wide receiver room for the Kansas City Chiefs we're going to talk about here. Started off the morning with the reports that wide receiver Xavier Worthy had been arrested in Texas, which get these guys out of Texas, stop these receivers going to Texas. It's ridiculous. So yeah, there are reports Xavier Worthy got arrested in Texas. I forget the exact charge. Something with to do with strangulation.
The
family
exact
member
charge was assault against a family member or a person, a household individual.
Yes.
Yeah, by impeding breathing.
Right.
Yeah. Essentially,
that later came out to be his, I would assume now
fiance.
Fiance.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Garrett can follow through.
So essentially the charge was, for lack of a better term, domestic violence, which is not something to take lightly ever. And we've had a lot of experiences that both here in the kingdom and obviously around the NFL. Luckily, pretty quickly, his attorneys came out with some statements and with some claims of having a lot of evidence that this was, in fact, kind of the opposite. Reports that his ex-fiance had been accused of infidelity.
Extortion. Yeah, infidelity and extortion was what there was the report from his attorney, along with photographic and witness evidence to the contrary of the arrest.
That seemed to be the biggest thing. Yeah. So later that day, he was released. The charges were dropped.
No, they refused to charge him. They didn't
even charge him. That was the whole thing. Yeah, there weren't even technically charges that were filed against him. The case, the county case or whatever,
dismissed would I think be the technical term for that. None of us are clearly lawyers on this episode.
No, yeah, and if anything, Tom might know the most.
Yeah, I want to point to some of the stuff that Seth Kaiser has done.
Seth always has to work on these off seasons.
Yeah, with Seth. Seth is a great follow and is actually a lawyer, so we'll defer to him. But one of the things that he noted is, and it's pretty standard language, but if more information comes to light, then they may amend it. So there's still technically that case. It's not done and buried yet, but at this time they're not pursuing the charge, which is based on the turnaround time and Xavier's team having evidence, and being just kind of in a place where they're kind of, I guess, ready to go and ready to say, hey, this isn't legit, this isn't or this isn't maybe as cut and dry as it was originally implied to be. And these situations rarely are.
So we should
and I
definitely
think,
immediately rush to judgment every time one of these things happens before any of the actual details come out, right, Tom?
yeah. Well, and so here's my thing, and I'll maybe say a little bit more here than what I said on socials, just because I think there is so much nuance in all these conversations. And speaking from my own personal perspective, I have had people in my life and in my own direct ways have been affected by intimate partner violence, aka domestic violence. I have also, in the same exact way, been affected by and have had people close to me affected by false accusations and narratives being spun. So what I would say to people is, if you are in a relationship that generates these types of situations, I just want to remind you that there are so many people who love you, and you do not need to stay in those situations, whichever end of that spectrum you are on. And love is not control. Love is not making you fear of a potential outcome, and it is not something where you have to worry about what a person is going to do in retaliation to your behavior. So um, those statements apply to anybody on either end of that spectrum, whether it's somebody who is being maybe manipulated or threatened with false accusations, or somebody who is being affected by actual violence. So I, in the past, have had strong opinions on things. The other thing I will say is that relationships, people are messy, and very rarely is one person have perfectly clean hands in a situation like that, because that's human nature. To quote one of my favorite comedians, crazy makes you crazy. And if you are, again, in that situation,
I think I know the comedian too, which is
yeah, there are people outside of that relationship. There, you have family members, you have friends, you have people around you who love you. And there are other people out in the world who will love you like that. Trust me,
big pond.
there are people who will sleep with you. I promise. I promise you will go get some. It'll be okay. But more than
Very
that,
well said.
there
Yeah.
are people out there who love you, and give them a call. Tell them you need help getting out, and just go. Move on. Life is too short. You don't get a refund. Again, I'm stealing Christopher Titus as the comedian.
Yes,
I'm
that's
stealing from him.
exactly what I
You
thought you were
don't get
quoting.
a refund. The Grim Reaper doesn't show up at your door and go, "Ah, man, I was going to kill you. Today was supposed to be your day, but you were with that person for 2 years, and that was really rough. So here's a coupon for 2 more years." That's not how it works. And we've watched it. I've watched it again, personal and we watch these professional athletes. People just spend years of their lives, and I get it. Human emotions are hard. Here's what you do: you go to therapy, you get out of that situation, you find somebody who loves you and respects you, and you move on with your life, and you go build a happy, beautiful life, because it's too short to be anything else other than that. So, all opinions aside, and that applies to everybody on both sides of the situations. I don't want
Yeah.
anybody. And these are young people we're talking about, right? And that doesn't make it okay. But Lord knows, if the three of us were put under a microscope at 21, or, well, Garrett, you're
Garrett's
like,
been 21 for not 21 for like 17 minutes. So yeah,
yeah.
just
But if we were all in that
Almost
same
24.
level, like, I'm sure there's stuff that, gosh, I've got
don't
stories. Some of
remind me
them,
because that means I'm getting old, Garrett.
yeah.
Shut up.
I told some stories on stage. I went, man, I'm really glad I'm not famous.
Yeah. I
I
mean, it's tough when these things
Look,
happen to you and you're under such a public spotlight,
yeah.
all I would add to what Tom
Mhm.
just said is one, male or female can be the victim in this stuff. First of all, that's one part that goes supremely under discussed. A lot of times when you think about these situations, most people assume it's male abusing female. I have seen personally firsthand, and there are plenty of accounts of that being the other way around. Even if, and because of that, because the assumption is almost always it's male versus female, people are not as likely to believe the male in those situations, which makes that hard. I'm not telling you she was beating him up in any form or fashion, although by the sounds of
Like
some
a
of
little
the
bit,
stuff
yeah.
that happened from the reports from the attorneys, that may have been occurring somewhat. It's not always, yes, you want to believe the victims. The problem with, as Tom mentioned, is a lot of these situations are messy, and finding out exactly who the victim is may not be so black and white and cut and dry. There are some situations where it's very black and white, cut and dry. Greg Hardy jumps to mind immediately when it comes to that situation. But on the other side of that same spectrum, Steve McNair was literally killed by his spouse, if I'm not mistaken, in a similar situation. So there are some black and white instances.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's a whole lot of gray. And in an era where everybody wants to rush to have their opinion to be first on the internet, sometimes the court of public opinion rules too quickly and too swiftly. And it was a lot of that this last weekend with, and this is one thing I will also add to this. If you were rooting for someone to be guilty of something because you don't like the sports team that they play for, you suck ass as a person.
Sad.
And I don't have anything else to say to you about that other than you're not a good person.
Go to therapy.
Yeah.
Go to therapy. That's
Go
what I have to
outside, touch grass, go to therapy. Stop being a bad human.
Victory lapping very early over stuff like that is kind of sick. Yeah, definitely. Gotta wait till the facts. Now, also, in situations like these, you gotta kind of remember a lot of these situations, it's like it's a he said, she said type thing. Like it's gonna take some investigating. Now, luckily, it seems like in this instant there were multiple eyewitnesses and different other pieces of evidence that were pretty immediately available to the sheriff's office and all that. But just hold out. You don't have to have your opinions right away when things like this happen. I know optically it looks bad initially, and I know Chiefs fans specifically are very tired of our players getting arrested in the offseason for X, Y, and Z reasons. But no situation is ever the same. And
this goes right back to 19?
Yeah, I mean
this gives you a lot of feelings of the Tyreek Hill stuff. The second time when it was reported one way. And now that reporter works in a different city and state because, maybe we should have got both sides of the story.
Yep. So that is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
And just my final thought, just is as simple as this. I have the same idea of touching grass. Let's pull this back for a minute. Before you send that tweet or share whatever, I'm just going to remind you that you've got friends, you've got families, you've got possibly your own partners. You've got people in your life who have been affected by these issues.
Yep.
And I've learned this firsthand. Like I said, I have friends and families who have been victims in those situations. I have friends who have been victims of false accusations and like all that stuff. And I've this is a lesson I've had to learn. I'm hoping you will learn it, like just randomly listener. I hope you'll learn it here. Your opinion, whatever it is, can cause a lot of damage for the people who are in your life, whose stories you may not know or may not even be considering in that moment. So sometimes the best thing you can do is just pause, wait, and let the chips fall. And at the end of the day, your opinion doesn't affect what happened. It doesn't affect the outcomes of those things, right? Legally, sports-wise, all that stuff, and all that's very secondary to the actual humans involved. But even just bringing that closer to home, the people in your life, like, think about them. Think about the people that these issues have affected, and just shut your mouth for a minute. Just shut your mouth for a minute. That's
Yeah.
all. Not everything needs to. Not everything needs to take. Not everything needs to be a meme. Not everything needs to be a joke.
Yeah.
Hermetic
Not
said
everything
it
has
best.
to be a chance.
Sometimes you just need to don't press send.
Yeah, not everything needs to be a chance to dunk on a team that you don't like. I mean, how often are we over here, talking about that other team from Ohio and their problematic wide receiver they drafted in the third round last year? Not that often. So,
Yeah.
you know, I we don't always have to do that because at the end of the day, these celebrities, sure, you may say they signed up for it. They, okay, they're famous, they're free game, whatever, fine. The people in your life, the people in my life, um, I
They
value
didn't.
them more than that, and I want to be careful with my takes and how those opinions could influence them and influence their ability to talk to me about issues that they're in, right? A problem that they may have that they may be involved in, and if you've got such a strong opinion one way or another, you're probably closing a door on a conversation that could otherwise be really important for that person. So whatever your take is, it's not as important as your personal relationships. So just put a pin in it and chill out. Let's talk about something else for like just a minute. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's valid. That's a good way to close out that.
Good
So,
transition. Let's talk about something else for a lot
yeah.
of
So
minutes.
on that same day, after the arrest, but before the dismissed charges, the Chiefs made a move in the wide receiver room, re-signing Hollywood Brown, which was going to happen without this Xavier Worthy thing, but the timing of it just seemed funny to some folks. But yeah, bringing Hollywood Brown back on a 1-year deal up to $11 million in total value. It's basically literally the exact same deal he signed last offseason, which makes sense. It always seemed like it was going to be that case of him kind of doing another 1-year prove it deal. I wouldn't expect a lot of other teams to kind of give him a bigger deal based off the last 6 or 7 games that he played. So it made more sense for him, I think, to come back to KC, get a deal that's incentive laden so he can earn back some of that money, as well as it's a good relationship for KC. See what you can get from him for a full season, and maybe he cashes out next year as was the original plan. So good to have Hollywood Brown back. I will say, it'll be interesting to see a full year of an offense, hopefully with Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Rashee Rice all in it. We'll kind of see more of what they planned for last year, but definitely need to have a good a good plan for him, a good plan for the whole offense, and see what exactly they want to use him as a, because they used him a little bit when he came back, and then during the playoffs he kind of disappeared again. So it'll just be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I have a lot of faith that this will be a good wide receiver room with those three.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big move for the Chiefs. It's low risk in that sense, but and one of the things that may be interesting to factor in there is it's a deal worth up to $11 million. I don't remember if you mentioned the guarantees on it, but that up to 11 million is because he missed so much time last year. Those dollars are considered not likely to be earned,
Yeah.
and so the Chiefs don't necessarily have to count those against the cap immediately this year. So just some extra flexibility there with how they can play with the money in terms of what they're reporting, and that can be helpful for them right now while they're a little tighter on things, and it may come into factor where they go, oh well, this and that, but that $5 or $6 million that is considered not likely to be earned, and they don't have to count against the cap this year, um, is pretty substantial for a team that's up against it. So
yeah, benefits the Chiefs, benefits Hollywood because he can still make a lot of that money back. So yeah, good signing. Good signing. I know Kyle's still dealing with.
Oh no, sorry y'all. My
Camera
camera
issues.
hates me on and off. I'm here.
Yeah.
It refuses to cooperate. So sometimes I'll be on your screen, and
Sometimes
sometimes
it'll be
there'll be
here and
just
sometimes
this
else.
little gray talking head that's over there in the circle.
which is what he's going to tell you, but in reality, we had to censor his camera because he keeps taking his pants off.
Yeah, that's it's almost exactly the same deal as last year for Hollywood. I'm more than fine with it. You saw De'Ami Brown get paid more than him by a little bit somehow, some way. Look, man, that season looks a lot different as far as how they progress through the season last year. If he's healthy the whole year, obviously Rashee Rice factors into that too. But him missing a legitimate chunk of the year and not even being sure if we would see him again on the field. It was
Mhm.
that derailed the start of the offense before we ever got started. So it's a big thing. There were several other teams that were interested in him, and for him to basically return on the same kind of thing with this team, it's good
Mhm.
news for the Chiefs. It's good news for Patrick because you could tell pretty easily they have a chemistry with each other
Oh, yeah.
that works.
Yeah.
And I expect him to be a focal point of this offense. And because he was hurt all of last season, most of those incentives are likely to not be earned, I'm sure.
Yep.
Which means that cap hits like $5 million or something, $6 million.
Yep.
6.6 is the number I think I saw.
Yeah, like 6.5,
Yeah.
6.6, I think. Yeah.
So that's
So
great for a team to get a solid 1A, 1B, 2A ish wide receiver. And if he's healthy, he
mhm.
could easily be a 1 if he's fully healthy and fully ready to go.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for what you're seeing receivers get paid with Justin Jefferson making 38. Hell, they franchise tagged T Higgins and he's going to be like $30 million this year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they still haven't paid Jamar Chase his more than Myles Garrett number now. 40, got to be 41 million a year, right? Because they already publicly said they were gonna make him the highest paid non-quarterback. So that number
Yeah.
just went up.
Bengals just keep on
But
waiting until that number gets up
The
more. It's
but
crazy.
but that's a big deal for the Chiefs to not be paying that kind of a contract. Hell, Tyreek
mhm.
looks cheap right now in Miami, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Um,
If you really think about it, the Chiefs don't have very much money at all tied up into the wide receivers right now, with
they got
two of them still being
two
on
a
rookie deals.
rookie,
Yeah.
or a second year player, going into his third year player, and a guy on a prove it deal. Like
Yeah. And
that's
he's still
pretty
got
damn
Sky Moore.
cheap for
He's still
great
got
wide
Sky Moore.
receiver
And
play.
Sky Moore.
Still got Sky Moore too. Still got Sky Moore. He's on a
Shut
rookie
up.
deal still. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah,
Listen, someone's gotta
Hollywood's fine.
get the
Hollywood's
ball.
exactly what the kind of guy. That's the kind of contract that you want for a guy that has. You already know what the floor looks like because it can't get any more floory than what happened last season, and you know what the upside can be. So
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So a good signing, good re-signing. Last move that the Chiefs made before the tampering window opened up, which will easily be the least controversial, least talked about. Kyle's back just in time. Just in time.
Just in
No,
time.
I'm lying. Actually, this is definitely the most controversial signing of the offseason. Chiefs re-signing linebacker Nick Bolton to a, what was the deal?
flat 3 year, 45 million with
3 year,
30 guaranteed.
45 million. Yeah.
So it's
Very
15
big,
million a year,
very
and the
big
first
deal.
2 years are guaranteed.
Yeah, a lot of, yeah, about 30 million guaranteed out of that deal. So let's just lay out some of the thing. Nick Bolton, former second round pick for the Chiefs, has been the line, or the quarterback essentially of the Chiefs defense the past 4 years. Steve Spagnuolo loves him. Um, he's a very good locker room guy. He's obviously really loved by his teammates. Coaches cannot speak enough about his high football IQ, which is the only reason that he's even even in contention for this type of contract. It's an interesting move. Let's not get dismissed. It's a lot of money to play to a player that is very limited in a lot of capacities. Um, it's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. I'll tell you that much right now. It's a lot more than I think we here at the Kingdom Says we're very comfortable paying him. I think it's a lot more than I had even projected, honestly. I mean, I thought at the top he was getting like 12 to 14 million, and he even exceeded that. So that's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I'll throw it over to you, Kyle. I'll throw it over to you
You
for your
want me to lead this one? You sure?
Tom. Do you
I'm
want
legitimately muting my mic while you two are talking so that stuff doesn't fly out of my mouth during.
Tom? Yeah, maybe Tom get a couple quips in real quick. The podcast is not stopped, folks. Tom is just deep in thought.
I,
It's yeah.
I'm trying to remember the expression. It's what is the saying? It's kind of like kissing your cousin.
What?
no matter how you cut it, it just kind of feels wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Doesn't matter which
or
way you
something
slice
like
it.
that.
Something like that.
It's an Arkansas saying, but yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. There's a whole other
No
expression
offense
of
to our
I'm,
Arkansas
I'm
Chiefs fans,
slaughtering
but
it.
yeah.
I I don't like it. Kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I want to say
Didn't
I
know it was
understand
coming,
it.
unfortunately.
I want to say it makes sense. No, this is. I, I'm torn because there have been times where Nick Bolton has provided above average linebacker play. However, those times have been usually contingent on a lot of other pieces around him playing lights out, and he's just kind of there to make the right play at the right time because everything else around him is going right.
Oh, he's Dan Sorensen.
He is
Dog.
he is not a he is a good player. He is not a difference maker, and he's getting paid difference maker money.
Fifth
Um,
max contract in the NFL.
for
By
a
the way.
guy who is probably um, a hair or two above, like he is like the Mendoza line for linebackers. Like he is average, and
Yeah.
there are times and there are aspects of his game as a whole that are below average. His athleticism is below average. I say that knowing that he is infinitely more athletic than I will ever be, but compared to the freaks of nature around him, he is lacking. His
Especially for linebacker
ability
these
to
days.
cover in zone, lacking.
Severely.
He is a plus run defender. He has high football IQ, and those balance out to an average at best. When he's been hindered, when he's had injury issues, especially since his injury, I believe it was last year, or not this last season, the season before, he has not looked the same. Um, and this is a kid that when he got drafted, I wasn't a big fan of. He won me over because his rookie year and his sophomore year, he was doing things like taking down prime Derrick Henry one-on-one in the backfield. He has had some good moments. Kyle mentioned, again, being you don't want to be too late. It feels like this has the potential to be a deal a year from now, 6 months from now, that we're going, oh boy, we should have went in a different direction. We should have done something else. The parts of it that I understand, there's not a lot out there. Linebackers are hard to find. You have some other guys on your team that complement him well. It's better, but the price tag is still pretty steep. The player is still not a difference maker, and you're strapped for cash. Um, so it is. I will say, much like Nick Bolton himself, the move is average at best, if not below average. Kyle, I yield my remaining time to you.
Kyle, take the floor.
By the way, folks, if you're a big Nick Bolton fan, if you're like a Mizzou Tiger, now's the time to maybe turn it down, take a break, go for a walk, because that was the optimistic outlook. Kyle is going to he's about to raw dog this one. And if you're sitting here listening to the podcast in your number 32 Nick Bolton jersey, you are going to want to probably just give us, I don't know, 10 minutes, give or take 8 minutes. Come back in 8 minutes.
Come back in 8 minutes.
I'm gonna try my best here to not. Let me do it like this. If you had to just roll through the top 15 linebackers in the league, is he in that group?
Are you talking pure off ball?
Off ball is a loose term here, Tom, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no.
No. The reason I bring that up is Matt Miller, noted Chiefs fan, big time ESPN draft guy, pretty versed on player eval. About 3 months ago, maybe even less,
He's like a month or two ago, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. 20-ish, 22nd, 23rd, 24th ranked linebacker overall in the NFL right now. And you just paid him a top 5 AVV and a top 5 guaranteed money contract.
All 5. Top 5.
Look,
Top
I'm
5.
not against keeping Nick Bolton in Kansas City. I'm against keeping Nick Bolton in Kansas City for $15 million a year. If Nick Bolton wanted to sign a 3-year, $30 million with 20 guaranteed, fine. 9.5. I would have even taken 10. At 10 was my absolute ceiling.
Yeah.
9 would have been great. 8 would have been a team-friendly deal. This is a contract. Like, here's my other question before I get too deep into this. Tom, you mentioned his athletic profile. His athletic profile coming out of college was average-ish, probably below average.
No, very well below average. He was like
there was some serious red on that Math Bomb RAS card, correct?
I'd say probably the lowest RAS the Chiefs have drafted in the past decade.
In a long time, because I remember we talked about it when they drafted him.
4.62.
Yeah, that's not great, Teddy.
Worse than I remember.
Now, notoriously, as guys get older and get more injured, they get more athletic and more productive from their athleticism, correct? Oh, no? No?
Incorrect, I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm going to say incorrect.
So now you've got a guy who has never been able to cover worth a damn. And I'm being nice with worth a damn because there's a lot of other ways to describe that.
Yeah.
Who is a bad athlete, and bad might be nice, judging by... And not bad athlete versus Joe the cab driver. Bad athlete versus NFL athletes, guys. Always remember when we're talking about this stuff, it's in relation to
Relative terms,
the league he plays in.
Especially with linebackers nowadays, the mold that they are.
He is...
Maybe like 15, 20 years ago, he'd be a good athlete at linebacker.
And he's been bad in coverage. He's a bad athlete, and he cannot shed blocks. He can't. If you can keep him clean, he's a good run defender. If he has to fight through a block, he's screwed, right?
Yeah,
and that was coming out of Missouri. That was the notes on him.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's getting older, and yes, I know he's 25. I get that. I understand. He was young when he came out. NFL snaps on a human body make you old quick, especially a middle linebacker. And especially a middle linebacker who was already a bad athlete, who has now had a shoulder injury, a leg injury, and a wrist injury.
He had a back thing, too, for part of last season,
And the back injury helped cause the hamstring or whatever it was, the other leg issue he had.
Yeah.
So he's had a bad wrist, a bad shoulder, a bad back, and it caused a leg issue because of the bad back. That's not a recipe for getting quicker. That's not a recipe for being better at shedding 300-pound men from trying to destroy you. None of that is a sign towards he's going to be trending upward in the next 2 years of this contract. And now you've paid him to be a top 5 linebacker, and he's not top 20 right now, and you expect him to be the next 2 seasons? It's the absolute opposite of being a year or two early than a year or two late, which is the philosophy you just used on a robot who's been, at worst, staying stagnant with being one of the best guards in the league. And I know the number's bigger, but the philosophy is where you lose me. So a lot of the time when we talk on this show, I don't have to like it. I just have to understand it. There is no explanation for this other than Steve wanted him. Okay. I love you, Spags. I do.
Yeah.
I also don't think you need a neurosurgeon to run that defense. Especially when you have a guy in Drew Tranquil who has shown the ability to call this defense because he's had to do it while Nick Bolton wasn't on the field from being hurt. And you have a guy in Leo Chenal who, fun fact, was the green dot at Wisconsin is a smart football player and does a lot of the same things Nick Bolton does better than Nick Bolton does them. So
We just get him to stop eating those crayons.
I the problem for this is not Nick Bolton sucks. That's not what I want the takeaway to be from this. What I want the takeaway to be from this is you can't misappropriate funds in a hard cap league with as much parity as there is in this league and get away with it over and over again. This is a deal that in a year or two or less than a year, you could be sitting around looking at going, well, we're missing this piece and that piece. Why? Well, we gave $12 million too much over 2 years to a guy that was replacement level. League average is replacement level, guys. Like, that's what the word league average means.
Yeah.
That's what that phrase means. So, all you have to do is look at the New York Jets. They just paid Sherwood basically the exact same contract. That's not great. That's not great. I'm not asking him to be Fred Warner, but I'm asking him to be at least Roquan Smith.
You're right.
Who's overrated as hell and getting paid a lot, but not getting paid Nick Bolton.
Yeah, I think that's where obviously the biggest kind of gripe. Nick Bolton, the player, obviously very limited, and you'd like to upgrade.
Leadership is great, and the calling the plays is great, and Spags loving him is great. But the same conversation we had with Andy and Patrick about sometimes you got to save them from themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to save Steve from himself, because if it was up to him, Anthony Hitchens would still be playing middle linebacker for the damn team.
Yeah, yeah. The Kyle, everything Kyle said is very valid there, and the money is very, very steep for the player that Nick Bolton is. There are a couple little, I guess, positive, not even really positive, but just a couple notes I have. It seems like teams this offseason have been very scared of the potential of moving linebackers. And we've seen a couple deals, of some very big deals of teams retaining their own instead of maybe testing the market at linebacker. It wasn't going to be the greatest linebacker class anyways. The draft linebacker class is decent, but not ideal. I mean, the whole draft class isn't ideal.
The draft class sucks. Can we stop beating around that bush? This draft class sucks.
Draft class is not good.
Can we talk about the draft?
But this definitely seems like a very safe is one way to use one word to use it, as Kyle disappears again. Safe is one word to use. Scared is almost another good word to use as far as this move. I think the Chiefs are very scared of what the future without Nick Bolton could look like, and that's why they
phrase about scared money.
Yeah, don't make money. I tell you, it do not make money. And I mean, me personally, I would have liked to see the Chiefs, take a bit of a swing on a younger guy, maybe a draft pick, and get some fresh blood in there. And worst case, it's hard to see them being a whole lot worse than Nick Bolton, but the potential is a lot higher with another option. So
there is a reason why across the league you're seeing some of these average to above average or formerly elite players with some red flags, i.e. Ronnie Stanley, i.e. Alaric Jackson. I mean,
i.e. Nick Bolton.
Teams are keeping players that I think that they would traditionally try to move on from because this draft class doesn't have replacements for them. And you're trying sometimes, especially when you're in a phase of, again, unless you're the Houston Texans, who are apparently just dealing all-pro left tackles for picks. Unless you are in a place, like if you're in a place of trying to compete or be competitive, you want to keep the floor at certain positions at a certain level. And you're probably going to hear me say that a couple times, and you'll hear me say it a lot about what I know we're going to talk about next, which is some of the signings that the Chiefs have made, the additions that they have made so far.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. We're going to look back at this, like Kyle alluded to, and that first.
I really
hope
flat. I hope to God I'm wrong. I hope he plays up to this contract. But
there is a positive spin. There's a chance he's 25 years old, and he had he was injured last year and the year before that. So there's a chance
go start working out with Bobby.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta do something. There's a chance though that he really grinds this offseason and looks at least like a better player, a little bit closer to 20, the sophomore year or the rookie year and play
Better
with
go
him.
start working out with Bobby.
Yeah,
Go get him that Rey Mysterio stem cell treatment. Have all his, stuff.
Something. I tell you what. But there's not, like I said, still 25, and also the good thing for the Chiefs is that it's just basically a 2-year deal. So, worst case, you're stuck with him for just 2 years, and yeah, that's kind of that. It's gonna be there's gonna be polarizing for a very long time, and that I tell you, with that first flat rat that he gives up to a running back where he's not even within 15 yards of him next season, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt when we have to all be like, oh, that's $15 million right on the field right there. That's not even in the vicinity of that fullback maybe that's running the flat route or something, But it's the move that we on our last episode kind of talked about a little bit, and we talked about this in the group chat. It's a mistake that we saw the Chiefs making, so it's it's not as surprising. It's kind of surprising though, especially that number. But
the number
we will
is
move
what.
on. We will move on. Nick Bolton still being here for the next at least 2 years, maybe 3-year deal. We'll see.
Not at $15 million 3
Right
years from now.
Yeah, I mean, best case scenario for the Chiefs, he outplays that contract and they extend him after 2 years, and we'll see. That's see how that goes.
Best case scenario.
That is the best case
the
scenario.
best.
So moving on to some of the Chiefs additions. Chiefs opened up legal tampering period a little hot. They had a couple quick signings. Very notably, the biggest notable one addition is 49er former 49ers left tackle Jaylon Moore signing with the team on a 2-year, 20 to 30. I'm already forgetting the contract.
30.
I'm a bad host.
30.
2 years, 30. Yeah, so 2-year, $30 million deal.
Isn't it 3 year but funny money? Well, I can't remember what
the.
No, I think
2
it's an
years,
actual
$21 million guaranteed.
Yeah, that's it.
And
that's
even
the one
for some reports, apparently people think it's almost just a 1-year deal because there's not
pretty much, because I think 21 is guaranteed the first year. Now, granted, I sent the numbers over that Matt Derrick did the numbers on it. I think it's $10 million in dead cap if they cut him next year, 17 if he plays next year.
Yeah. So real quick, so 21 million guaranteed, 7.5 at signing, right? Which means he has 6.7 this year, and then 14 next year. So it's with 7 million of that guaranteed next year. So essentially it's a 1-year deal. They'd have a little bit of dead cap if they cut him next year, but it would also, I think, let me make sure, maybe save them some. I'm not sure. I'm not a cap guy, but a solid deal. When you look at, so the other guy that was in that grouping with him was Dan Moore from Pittsburgh. When you look at what he got paid, I'll take this deal.
Yeah.
I'll take this deal
4 for 80 with 55 million guaranteed for Dan Moore, right?
Yeah,
My brother in Christ.
Sizable. That's a sizable
Jesus
jump from what
Christ.
Jaylon made. So listen, here's the scoop the scoop on Jaylon Moore. So 27 years old. He was a backup tackle for the 49ers for the past couple years.
Not necessarily his fault. Trent Williams is pretty good.
Exactly. Trent Williams is there at left tackle. He filled in for Trent a little bit this year. I believe getting 5 starts. Yeah. So overall, he doesn't have a ton of starting experience. He's got a decent athletic profile for sure, which is good. And definitely a lot of upside still, only being 27 years old, especially getting him on a deal like this. The deal itself, it signals that he's probably not their only solution at left tackle. He's probably just one of the options they will employ at left tackle, but definitely raises the floor, which we just talked about. Definitely raises the floor at left tackle. Regardless, you have a really good swing tackle who will definitely compete at left tackle. But a lot of upside. Tom, so, I know you're kind of the O-line guy. I don't know your thoughts on Joe Moore, especially for that price. Can't be too mad about it. That's why I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, and so again, raising the floor, drawing parallels again back to the 2019 Tampa Bay Super Bowl. Like, one of the things they went out and did, they signed Kyle Long. They signed, who was the other guard that they picked up? Another veteran that
Osmele.
Kalechi.
Kalechi.
Yeah, similarly.
Assembly.
Chiefs
That's
legend.
what his name is. Yeah.
So, and Kyle Long never even ended up like
I feel bad
injured.
for Fletchy still.
And then,
That dude
Yeah.
blew both his
Fletchy
knees
only
at
made
the
like
same
5 games
time.
too.
yeah, and then that
Pop,
paved the way.
both of them knees at the exact same time. That's
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you raised the floor, you had your bets. Now, if we get to week 1, and this is what our offensive line room looks like, and your offensive tackles options are Jaylon Moore and Wanya Morris, we need to have some conversation.
Not great still. Yeah.
Now, again, the chances of that I think are pretty slim. I think you are going to look pretty steadily for um, a option in the draft, and again, you're kind of setting yourself up where you don't get pigeonholed into having to take a tackle just to take a tackle because you need a tackle.
That's
If you get
what you
the
want.
first round pick, if you get to 31 and there's a tackle, like there's not good value at tackle, you can pivot to somewhere else knowing that you have at least a serviceable option for a year and look for something else in round 2 or day 2. I think overall there's still some questions about how this position like long term has been handled and the vision for it and how it's been planned
Coach.
for.
Sorry, I had to sneeze for a
Some
second.
of the players have been developed, but I don't want to trigger Kyle again, so we're going to stay away from that. But I think again, now what I've heard, and I've not gone and watched more too closely, but what I've heard, and I think it was Nate Tice on the Athletic Football Show, which is, Jaylon Moore is a league average, like replacement level player who probably would have been getting some starting snaps if he wasn't behind, a Frankenstein monsters of a left tackle.
Yeah, future Hall of Famer.
And when he's had to play in San Francisco, has looked good. I have not gone back and looked at the tape. I've looked at his measurables. He did play at Western Michigan with Sky Moore and Mike Caliendo, so let's not hold that against him.
Yeah.
But he's got 33 and 5/8 inch arms, light on his feet. We talked a lot about dying a slow death. He's got that down. He's probably not going to be dominant in the run game or even dominant in the pass game, but he's going to hold up and he's going to get you time. If you get into the season and you get to training camp and you're letting DJ Humphries and Jaylon Moore kind of fight it out for that spot, and you've got like that to me is a lot more digestible than whatever we did last year with walking in with a guy who they apparently believed was a guard. I'm gonna harp on it because it's ticking me off a little bit because it's like, okay, I was the biggest Kingsley fan out there, and you're telling me you thought like you drafted him and you thought, oh, he's probably gonna be better at a guard, which was not the messaging we had early last year. But then your plan was to go in with him and Wanya at left tackle to start your season last year? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Andy, what are we doing, y'all? Okay, blood pressure. Let's bring it back down. Anyways, you have to have a better plan than you had last year, period.
Or stick to the freaking plan that you had.
Yeah. And you know what? I think there's a part of me, and I almost made this joke earlier. I was like, I wonder if Brett Veach traded Joe Thuney just so they'd stop playing him at left tackle, because I think there's
give him an option. Yeah.
on the planet who were convinced that was the right idea at halftime of that Super Bowl. But yeah. So again, hopefully the fall off. I mean, we're gonna have some fall off at left guard. I think it also gives you some stability of a veteran guy who, if you're playing next to Kingsley, you don't have to bring a rookie in week 1 and that. To be honest, there's maybe 2 tackles, maybe 2. And if it's a maybe, then it's probably not a maybe. I would say there's 1 tackle that I would say could start week 1, and I would be okay with that in this draft coming up.
Guess what pick he's going at, kids?
Probably in the mid-20s because he tore his ACL. But, yeah.
It ain't 31. I can tell you that.
31. Yeah, you ain't gonna be touching 31 probably.
Garrett, do you want to read Brandon Thorne's Jaylon Moore excerpt that you sent to the group, or should I?
Well, it seems like you already have it in front of you, but you might as well read it. But yeah, I did see that Brandon Thorne, who is a pretty well
If
respected
you don't know who
O-line.
Brandon Thorne is, and you care at all or want to know about O-line play, find out who Brandon Thorne is. He is probably the guy when it comes to evaluating offensive line talent,
He's pretty good,
players.
yeah. And he was pretty high on. I found it. He was pretty high on Jaylon Moore. Claiming he's set to enter his 5th season in 2025 with just 12 career starts at left tackle. Been a solid back through that time. Possesses coordinated, synced up footwork and hands that allow him to stay attached to blocks in pass protection. Moore doesn't have any standout high end physical traits, but is a competent blocker who can compete for a left tackle job and provide quality depth, which not bad, not a bad person to add to the left tackle room. He, like I said, raises the floor. Definitely is just a lot safer of an option. He might not blow you away with anything specifically, but just staying in front of people, staying engaged in his block, good technique, all that stuff. It'll be interesting to see how he kind of adapts a little more to a more vertical passing pass set offense that the Chiefs run as opposed to San Francisco, who just they're a very unique offense in itself. But definitely gonna be a little bit of a change up. It's not the easiest to kind of find a tackle that's in the same kind of scheme that the Chiefs run, where you're having big vertical pass sets. They've had some luck with converting guys before. Obviously, Orlando Brown Jr. being the biggest one. So they kind of made work for that role. Jaylon Moore way more athletic than Orlando Brown Jr. was. So overall, I mean, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with the pickup with the asterisks that can't be done at that position, and really on the offensive line in general. I think there might be more moves to be made.
So I'll say this: his athletic profile fits what the Chiefs look for. It makes sense from that aspect. Watched a decent chunk of his 5 starts from last year. I got through probably 3 of them today.
Nice.
I see it. I see what they see. I understand the approach. I think he'll be, as Tom mentioned, the die a slow death, the so on and so forth. If you look at his pressure rates and whatnot, depending on which source you use, I, for one, despise the boys, but it is what it is. That one's a little more less subjective because it's literally a stopwatch. For whether or not they gave up pressure in 2.5 seconds is roughly the clicker on that. He was like 6% overall and like 7% in pure drop back passing situations, or maybe a little more than that. There's obviously decimal points on those percentages, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. I think Zach Eisen might have tweeted them out at some point today. I can't remember. Seth has looked at film. You're going to get an article from Mr. Seth Kaiser, who we talked about earlier. That article, I believe, drops Tuesday morning. So depending on when you're seeing this, it may already be out.
Might be out.
I get it. I also think he would have started for the 49ers had Trent Williams not been standing there going, "Hi, I'm Trent Williams. Nice to see you. Enjoy the bench, kid." Look, all of this is fun and cute and good, and we can talk about the draft pick or the free agent or the player they traded for. But if your coaching staff can't coach the tackle position, they can't coach the tackle position, and you're just kind of stuck with whatever you get from the player once you get them. And your coach right now cannot coach the tackle position. Not a single tackle has improved since they got him. Not one. Not Lucas Niang. Not Orlando Brown Jr. Not Kingsley. Not insert Lucas. None of them. Jawan Taylor has not improved. He's not improved the things that he's not good at. He's done the things he is good at, but he's never once improved any of the other stuff that he's not good at. That's not coaching. That's living off what the talent the player has. And I know there are plenty of people that around the league that respect Andy Heck a ton from the O-line perspective. The last 4 years, 5 years, I haven't seen it. and it's become more and more evident the more and more we've gone down the road. The first few years, it was like, okay, he's trying to piece stuff together. Maybe it's the player that doesn't fit the style, with Orlando. But they've tried different styles. They've tried different players. They've tried young. They've tried old. They've tried this. They've tried that. If he doesn't get it together, they're not going to get better at the tackle positions. So, and I'm starting to see more people that are respected in covering this team start to talk about it more. I've been banging on this drum since week 2 of this last season. You can talk about how they handled last year. They had a plan, Tom. The problem is they panicked and objected on the plan and never fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
They never even gave it a chance.
Yep.
And this whole conversation about, we believe Kingsley's a guard. Since when? You believed he was your starting left tackle of the future when you A, drafted him, and B, started him all the first 3 weeks of the season and swore up and down all through training camp he was your best option by a country mile. So something's not adding up there. You're lying at some point. At some point in this last 18 months, you have been lying through your teeth at some point about Kingsley. Somewhere. I don't know if it was last training camp in the first 3 weeks of the season. I don't know if it was the last 6 months of the season. I don't know if it's now when you're talking about him as a guard, but you've been lying about him at some point. So you better figure out why this keeps happening with the 17 different options you've had at tackle over the last several years. Because Wanya ain't get no better either. He actually regressed last year. He was better 2 years ago than he was last year.
Yep.
So something's got to give. And it may not be popular. It may, you're just... No. This is a problem that has to be addressed. You cannot do the same things over and over and over and expect a different result. And when your GM has given you 17 different attempts at a variety of guys that you all asked for, and I guarantee you Andy Heck and Andy Reid had input on what they wanted at that position. Guaranteed. If you get given what you ask for and it doesn't work, at that point it's not on the player and it's not on the GM, it's on the coaches.
Yeah. So that's the Chiefs' current left tackle situation. We'll see how that progresses throughout the rest of the offseason. That's definitely the most notable signing so far for the Chiefs. There have been a couple others we're going to touch on right here. Elijah Mitchell, another former 49er, running back, coming on a 1 year.
Is he going to wear number 1? That looks like Jared McKinnon to you?
Kind of Jared McKinnon music almost. Yeah, it's another very similar situation coming over. He's still a younger running back, had a couple injury issues in San Francisco the past few years. You're getting him on a very cheap, just a 1 year deal up to $3.5 million.
There's your third down back.
Yeah, that's more than likely
least, at minimum.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Elijah Mitchell.
He's a pass catcher. He can run the ball.
Catcher,
he was actually pretty good at it when he got the opportunity to run the ball, because San Francisco goes through running backs like they change underwear out there because all of them get hurt.
It's the injury. Yeah, I would say the injuries piece. He had 1,000 yards his rookie season. He was good.
Because I believe that was the year he was running for when they lost
everybody.
Well, yeah, they lost McKinnon and Mostert, didn't they, that year before McKinnon ended up in Kansas City? And
yeah,
2021.
Hey, it's the same thing. Good pickup, like the move. Can't be done at that position. Need more.
No, they need more, because whether it's Kareem again, whether it's a draft pick at some point in this draft, whether it's another free agent, Pacheco's got some issues that he's got to figure out from a vision standpoint, and I don't know if you can teach vision. He got hurt last year in a pretty nasty injury to an ankle, and we've seen that derail running backs, Clyde. Look, much like the Tom mentioned with the floor, raising the floor and making sure that you don't have a hole that you have to draft a certain player at a certain spot. That's what you want when you go into the draft. And Elijah Mitchell gives you another running back to where you're not pigeonholed into a second-round pick or a
Mhm.
first-round pick or whatever on a running back. Now, if Ashton Genty's there at 31, by all freaking means, take it.
You still might have to draft a running
But
back first 3
but
picks.
you know,
If-
again, but you don't have to.
Right.
If all the running backs are gone by
Yeah.
66, you don't have to burn that pick. You got 2 in the third. You
Got
can
more
wait and
options.
see what happens.
It is a good running back class. I wouldn't be mad with Omari and Hampton.
There's like 12 running backs in this class.
Hampton's really
That
good.
are all
It's
pretty
a
close.
Very good running back class.
And they're all pretty close, other than Ashton Genty, who's just a freaking freak. But you can me. He destroyed BCS top 10 teams while on Boise State.
That wasn't a he's not good. That was a Hampton
There's
is
other
also very
freaks.
good.
There's some other
Hampton's
freaks.
fine. I'm still taking Genty over him if I have the choice between the two.
Fair.
Give me Cam Scattaboo. All right.
I love Cam. He's not explosive. He's not a home run guy.
Cam Scattaboo. Cam Scattaboo reminds me of.
It's felt like give me Iguodala.
Dirty
You know,
Darrell
one of
Williams.
those. Yeah.
I like Cam. I liked what he did at Arizona State. I liked him giving Texas all they could handle.
Yeah.
Like
But-
twice.
Cam is so much fun.
Doesn't necessarily elevate the running back room a whole ton. Listen, Elijah Mitchell is a good signing.
Yeah.
You know, good signing. Well, he'll be
It's
little bit of piece of
a raise
offense.
the floor, not leave a hole that we absolutely have to fill with the draft pick.
Not like definitely any kind of like home run, big running back addition, but he's good. Add another guy to the running back
speed.
position.
We'll
you can
take it.
always you can always use more running backs. So
And 4-3 guys. 4-3 guys are nice.
that's good. That's good. Hopefully he still has that speed after all the injuries. Other notable signings: Chiefs re-signed Cole Christensen, linebacker, special teamer, to a 1-year very minimum deal.
Four team guy matters.
Yeah, cool. Cole Christensen's cool. He's a Army guy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So that's
West
cool.
Point grad.
Yeah. So that's cool. Also, James Winchester re-signing on a 1-year.
That you buried the lead, Garrett. That's probably one of the more important free agent
1-year,
signings of the
$1.65
year.
million deal. Great to have James Winchester back. He's been nothing but awesome and the model of consistency for a long snapper since he's been here. This will be year 11 for James going into KC, the longest tenured Chiefs player by a good amount now at this point.
I hope that dude snaps for another 12 years like Kendall Gammon did for.
Or is Travis?
I think Travis is still older.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, wait, Travis is going to year 13. So two very long tenured Chiefs.
People don't realize how important that position is. All of the things that happen from Harrison Butker and from Matt Araiza or Tommy Townsend or Dustin Colquitt, that ball has to leave that guy's hand first. Yep. And I know people are like, oh, he's just snapping the ball. That to me tells me you've never tried to snap a ball 20 yards behind you. First of all, just on the field goal stuff alone, if that snap is not rotated in a certain way at a certain point to where the laces are at a certain spot when the holder catches it, it screws up everything, guys. There's a reason there's a science to long snapping of football, especially at the pro level. So he's an extremely important piece. I know Randy said this. I wish they'd just give him a long-term deal. I get it. You don't want long-term money tied up in a long snapper in case the worst case scenario happens and he gets hurt and you can't and whatever. Like
you got to be able to replace that spot. Yeah.
Hopefully that dude is signing a 1-year deal every offseason from now until 2038 for my book.
Yeah, 35 years old, so who knows? He might be close to hanging him up. Probably not, though. I mean, he can.
Dude, he's a long snapper. I hope God he snaps for. Kendall Gammon snapped for what, Tom? 23 years?
Like 42 or 43 when he finally retired. Yeah. It was something pretty egregious.
Buddy, keep snapping. Keep it rolling,
keep on
dog.
That bag. I mean, he's got a pretty good gig with just being the long snapper, having a lot of. Yeah, that's a good gig to have. That's a
lot less wear and tear on the body, especially now with the new rules where they can't completely try to kill them.
Yeah. And James, I mean, hey, he's a really good long snapper, also a really good tackler though. He ain't afraid to run down the field on a punt. And
I'm also glad though that they did change the rules to where you can't just try to decapitate him once he snaps the ball now, like they used to do with long snappers.
Definitely prolongs that career a little longer, which is nice. So yeah, that's the last and pretty much all the notable Chiefs signings that we've had so far as of Monday night. Now Chiefs typically seem to be they'll make a couple splashes and then they'll kind of wait for that next wave. That's kind of been their theme the past few years. We'll see if anything else happens in the immediate future, but that is all the additions and reacquisitions and all that stuff.
Now we have to talk about the sad parts.
Yeah, so there's a couple guys that as it always
Happy, but
goes, a
sad.
couple departures that the Chiefs have already lost free agents.
I will remember you.
Exactly, Tom
Is that-
nailed that rendition.
I like that.
Most
That was
notably, the biggest loss and the biggest contract signed somewhere else. Tershawn Wharton, defensive tackle, signs a 3-year, $54 million deal with the Carolina Panthers. Boy, oh boy, that is a massive payday for Turk, which is super awesome to see. We are very big fans of Turk over here at the Kingdom Says. We've been huge fans of his ever since he came out as a undrafted free agent out of Missouri S&T. Name another Missouri S&T alum. You probably can't. Shout out Turk for overcoming a D2 school, getting to the NFL.
I can't, but none of them play in the
I
NFL.
love him.
I can name several of them, but I can't.
And that's yeah. I mean, that's really.
Go look at NASA. You'll find a couple, but don't look in the NFL for them because there's not.
NFL, you might not find a couple. So, Turk has been nothing but awesome since he's been in Kansas City. Has progressively gotten better and better every year. It seems like had a big torn ACL injury at the end of 2023. The Chiefs re-signed him for a 1-year deal this past year, and he made the most of it. Let's say he came back in full form, led the team with 8.5 total sacks throughout the regular season and postseason. He cashed in, and as a person, as a player, he's awesome, and it's really cool to see him get this kind of money. 3 years, $54 million that's generational stuff. That's some really good life changing money. So shout out to Turk.
This one breaks the heart a little.
Yeah, definitely very bittersweet because not only the player is really awesome, but the person.
If you need evidence of that, go look at his teammates' reactions to it.
Yeah.
Chris Jones, Malik Herring, Mike Dana, all the guys in that room when they saw the deal, all their responses to it on the social media platforms. This one hurts a little bit. This feels a lot like Colin. I was a little heartbroken when Colin went to New Orleans. I'm in a similar boat with this one. I've been majorly on the Turk Wharton fan bandwagon since the day he got here. UDFA guy, earned every second and every dollar he's gotten to this point. As Garrett mentioned, the ACL that he battled back through and completely fixed it. He also, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he have that nasty arm injury his rookie, earlier in his rookie year?
He was one of the redshirt IR guys that the Chiefs always like to do, I believe. Yeah, I believe he was a redshirt IR guy.
So I've been a huge fan of the kid since he got here. He's an A-plus person, as Garrett mentioned. He's a locker room guy. Energy. Chris Jones, I believe, called him slime, which is a good thing for those that are uninitiated to that lingo. That's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Kyle saying he called him slime.
He
didn't sound old at all there when you said that, Kyle. I'll just tell you, didn't sound old at all.
I know. I'm trying to translate for the older folks who don't know that that's a positive term.
You're right. Yeah.
What?
He said he's
a good thing. It's a good thing. But no, man. I'm not surprised. I knew he was getting a bag. The way he played this year,
he knew it. Every single sack celebration, he was doing the money.
And as he should be. I'm also not surprised by the team. Carolina, Brant Tillis was like, "Yep, let me grab that real quick."
Yeah, I don't take you. Yeah,
and he's a big portion of that front office there in Carolina now. You've seen the Chiefs guys. Joe Thuney is a Chicago Bear. Ryan Poles. Tershawn Wharton is a Carolina Panther. Brant Tillis. Charvarius Ward, former Chief and Niner, is now an Indianapolis Colt with Chris Ballard, who used to deal with the Chiefs and be around the Chiefs. But there's a lot of... The poaching is finally starting to happen in some instances. Not as much with the coaching staffs necessarily, more so with the players and the Super Bowl experience. Also, that factors into him getting that bag. That kid's played in 3 Super Bowls. He's been a part of 3 Super Bowl teams, whether they won or appeared. He's been a part of all of those. That's important for a franchise that, frankly, doesn't have squat as far as a winning culture is concerned and hasn't been good in a long time. You need guys like that, and for him to get 18 million per, I didn't even see the guarantees. It's got to be like 38 or 40, right? It's got to be close to that.
Yeah, it was pretty. Let me
But
look it up real quick. It was good. It was a good number guaranteed for sure.
He's earned every second
30
of
mil,
it.
30 mil guaranteed.
30 guaranteed, so
Pretty
it's
good.
a 2-year deal. We'll see where it goes, but I expect him to play out that contract and probably get an extension or get more money in restructures or whatnot as he continues to perform. It's a generational, life-changing, family-changing thing for a guy that has earned it, and I'm happy for him, and I hate it for us because we're going to miss him, but I could not be happier for the player and the person.
Yeah, I agree. Tom, any other thoughts on Turk?
Charlie Copley, NFL tackle, circa 1914. Bill
That's the
Preston,
other
circa
Missouri
1915, NFL tackle.
Did you say 1914 and 1915? Is that what I heard?
He did say those. No, I think
1914 and 1915. There was one, Forrestall Hickman, 2015. The only other individuals from Missouri S&T to ever play in the NFL, and Turk certainly is the most accomplished of any of them.
Seeing as how 2 of them played over 100 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild.
Also, Missouri S&T, surprisingly accomplished college. Holy cow! I was like,
there's a lot of smart people that go to school there. There's a lot.
They've done a lot of things. They've done a lot. Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter.
Jeez,
Missouri S&T.
Wow, I didn't know Missouri S&T had like that.
Yeah. I did because I've been on that campus for a trip during college.
Were you on campus for?
The guy who created water, Gary White.
Created water.
Oh wait, no, co-founder of water.org. Never mind.
I was like, created water. I feel like that's.
Listen, we're almost at an hour and a half.
I feel like I might know who created water, but I don't think it was him.
So he goes by different names, but I don't think.
I know he's got different names in different places, but yeah. So yeah, shout out Turk for getting the bag. He will be missed, and now leaves a pretty big hole as far as the Chiefs' defensive tackle situation. We'll see how they address that. A couple other departures we'll quickly touch on before we get out of here because we've been going a good while. Justin Watson signing with the Houston Texans on a small little deal.
That's another one of those save Andy from himself moves, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a massive save Andy for himself. Cannot.
I love Justin. He's done everything they asked him to, and then some. He's the perfect teammate. I'm happy for him. I hope he got paid.
Yeah, I agree. He'll be a good depth piece for Houston over there. Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, Tom's a character. Yeah, you guys behind the scenes won't understand that, but just
I hope they see these things. Yeah. Sometimes the
we're gonna leave that one in the inside joke category.
We'll leave that one inside. But yeah, J Watt going to Houston obviously opens up more of the wide receiver room for new potential options. But he's been pretty good since he came here. Obviously, 2-time Super Bowl champ as well. Can't say enough good things about J Watt. And then Samaje Perine goes back to Cincinnati and gets a 2-year deal there.
He lost money somehow in like 4 hours. He went from making $22 million a year for 3 years.
Reportedly had a very, very lucrative contract signed that just wasn't real. So shout out to Samaje. Shout out to all the former Chiefs. That there are still a couple other pending free agents. Justin Reed's still out there. A couple other guys.
That will be interesting to monitor.
Yeah, it's still TBD as far as his status, but yeah, it's gonna be. We're gonna have a lot of new faces as far as
Willie Gay also still on the market.
Willie Gay is on the market. Juan Thornhill is on the market.
Thornhill's on the market.
It's a couple former Chiefs that are out there still. So
should be like I said, guys. This is This offseason is
Interesting.
going to be wild and interesting. There's going to be
Yeah.
a lot of things that take place that you're going to be like, what the hell just happened?
Very
We've already
interesting.
had several of those, but strap in. We got a long way to go before this offseason is over.
Yeah.
Drafts what, April something or other?
Last week of April, yeah.
20 something.
So yeah, definitely still a lot of time to assemble these rosters. Last little note on free agency that I just kind of I thought about this earlier and I wanted to bring it up and then I kind of forgot, but I just remembered with this this recent conversation of Juan Thornhill and Willie Gay and guys like that. A lot of times in free agency like this, we see a lot of big names move around to other teams and usually there's always like some kind of like connection there, right? Like usually there's some type of familiarity, they're getting reunited with their former offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator or all that kind of stuff. That happens pretty frequently. I mean, we just saw Sam Darnold go to the Seahawks just because he's reuniting with his former OC and
Kubiak
49 or so. That happens pretty frequently around the NFL where you see these big name free agents or big name trade candidates who are on the market and, they end up going to somewhere that they have a little bit of ties to. And
Harold
it's just
Landry?
interesting because the Chiefs, because we've had the same coordinators and we really haven't had a lot of staff turnover the past few years, we haven't had that kind of benefit of like reuniting guys with their old coordinators and all that stuff. We don't have that as much.
That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Exactly. Not a bad thing. And it's just it's different. The Chiefs have obviously been really good at just developing and drafting guys and making things work like that. But with that conversation of a couple of the former Chiefs being back on the market, it is interesting to think of reunions and stuff like that. It was one of the only times that the Chiefs kind of have a leg up in that department. So just a little note I thought I'd want to add to free agency and how kind of moves get made. A lot of times teams will more likely go for a guy that they have a little more knowledge of, inside knowledge of.
And on that same boat for the player, sometimes you leave a team and you go somewhere else in free agency, and then all of a sudden that grass ain't quite greener on the other side of that fence, no matter how many dollars hit that bank account.
Yeah, that too.
And now it's like, well, how much do I prioritize? I got paid. I already got paid.
That's huge. Yeah.
So now what do I want to do? Now do I want to go where I know the going is good and I know the culture and I know the locker room and I know the staff? Or do I want to chase dollars still? Cole Hardman jumps to mind immediately in that category.
The guy's still out there. Yeah.
He went to the Jets and was like, holy, screw this. Let me the hell out of this mess, please and thank you. I will happily go back to Kansas City. Please, quick, fast, in a hurry. Willie Gay was in New Orleans, and
no, he's not. Man,
they suck.
New Orleans is not very good
because their cap space is a disaster. Because they tried to kick the can down the road for like 14 years, and then finally that trash can hit somebody on the head, and they couldn't kick it any farther. That was tough, I'm sure, especially with the Dennis Allen stuff and all the situations with the front office and all the things going on there. It's not an easy environment. Probably more inclined to venture on home if the Chiefs are looking to add in that linebacker department. Juan Thornhill, you guys looked around at Cleveland lately? Myles Garrett said, I want to burn this place to the ground. Oh, $40 million? Okay, I'll come home.
Let me run that by me one more time. What was the number you just told me? You're going to pay me how much a year? I don't want to be traded anymore, actually. You know what? I love Cleveland.
The irony of that one is, let me have a no-trade clause, too, by the way.
Yeah, that is.
I wanted you to trade me last week and shit on you at the Super Bowl, but now I want that $40 million and to not be allowed to be traded unless I want to be traded.
Money usually does talk, so that's always you always got to remember that. Usually,
important to realize that sometimes when they leave Kansas City and they're like, "Oh, it'll be all right somewhere else," and then they go somewhere else. Oh, it really sucks. Let me go back where it was because that was not that.
So just something to monitor as the next couple of days of free agency and the next couple of weeks of the offseason kind of progress. We'll see if there's any other reunions that we might happen upon once again, which I would be very welcome for. So
Charles Manning is still out there too.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Do we want to?
I don't know, Doug. We're an hour and a half in. What else do you want to do?
Last thing I think, just real quick, I think we can knock out just of the couple of the free agents that are still left. Is there any name that jumps out? One name that jumps out to each of you guys that you would still like to target that has not been signed yet as of 9:18 p.m.
New
Pacific Standard
player
Time?
or
Just anyone, yeah, just any deal that you'd like to see come down the pipe. I'd say.
well, the Panthers ruined my day with that one when they signed
Well,
Turk.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Tom, you got one?
I'm looking right now.
Okay. Well,
Can,
I'll
can we,
go then.
can
I'll
it
go
be,
then.
can it be somebody who we know is likely to become a free agent?
I mean, sure, we can caveat that. Yeah.
I mean, I think Cooper Cup is the only one who might move the needle for me if he hits the market.
I would like to see Charles Omenihu back in a Chiefs uniform.
Yeah.
I want a
I
whole
would-
year. I want a whole year where he doesn't have injury or off field or any of that shit going on. Sorry if you have children listening. I apologize. That's like the second or third time that I
Well,
just
so you
slipped
did it in
one.
the first like 2 minutes of the podcast, so I think
It's sorry.
I
It's
think
been
we're
an
good.
it's been a night. I told you guys when we started this. It's been a long 96 hours, ups
Yeah.
and downs. I'm glad we didn't do a podcast with the breaking news on Saturday and Sunday. Put it that way.
Yeah, that would have
That
been
that podcast
been
would have
crazy.
been labeled with the explicit tag for certain. Charles Omenihu is a guy who I still think has plenty in the tank
Yeah.
and has plenty left to prove. I know he's not happy with what happened on Super Bowl Sunday. He's another one of those guys where it's like, I won a ring and I was this close and that team and we should have got it done and we went out and crapped our
Mhm.
pants and I want to wash that taste out of my mouth. That's the kind of guys you need for this team right now from a motivational perspective, from a leadership perspective.
Good leader.
Travis,
Yeah.
Patrick, Chris, Charles, Nick Bolton, I guess, being nice at this point.
The most dejected Nick Bolton, I guess.
Again, man,
Yeah.
9 million, not 15, and that's I'm singing a totally different tune.
Yeah. Right.
But Charles Omenihu, and I don't think it's gonna take. If it was gonna be a big money deal, I think you'd have already seen it done because this is kind of how the free agency cycle works. You get that first wave where it's big dollars and big this and big that, and then you get that second and third wave. And there's a lot of D linemen that Jonathan Stewart from Washington. Is it Stewart?
Jonathan Allen.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Stewart was a running back from the Carolina Panthers from
Oh,
like
that's
20
right.
years ago.
Yeah.
Jonathan Allen, Joey Bosa, Sweat still hasn't gotten a deal, I don't think. Omenihu's out there. Did
I
Josh
think
Sweat get paid?
Yeah.
Yeah, he signed with Arizona. I don't know, surprisingly cheap deal.
Interesting. I didn't expect him to sign a. Anyway, Milton Williams got
4 years, $76 million.
That's not that cheap.
For what he could have got.
True.
41 guaranteed. That's a pretty decent deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad. Milton Williams ate the bank account. They backed a Brinks truck up to his house. But there's a lot of D linemen out and about, and older veteran D linemen. So that's not exactly a small market right now. I don't know that you'd have to spend a ton. You already know he knows the system. You already know what he's capable of next to Chris Jones. And you need D linemen right now. If you look in that Chiefs D line room, that depth chart is
need at least
empty.
Add one or two. Add one or two.
I don't think you can go into a draft and need 4 defensive linemen. So
probably not good. Yeah.
I would like to see Charles back in a Chiefs uniform.
I agree with that. A couple other names I'll throw in there real quick. Obviously, Justin Reed. I would like to see Justin Reed back as a re-signing. It seems like that might not happen with Nick Bolton.
I would too at the right dollar, but I don't know if that's an option.
Yeah, exactly. Seems like they kind of chose Nick over Justin, which, that's all right. 2 other names I wouldn't mind seeing, just other veteran options. Tyler Lockett is out there. That'd be cool. His dad was
little hometown reunion.
His dad was a Chief. He can still
State.
give you some really good wide receiver snaps. Obviously, after last year, you should stock up as much as you can wide receiver just in case.
Played at K-State too.
Yeah, That's true. Yeah, so a little hometown local guy would be cool to see. And also Evan Ingram. He's a little bit older now. He's not
Oh
quite the
God,
Evan Ingram that we once saw, but would be a good
why?
compliment tight end to Travis.
He's
Obviously, the
worse
Chiefs like.
Noah Gray. He's older, worse Noah Gray. What are we
I mean,
talking?
yeah. Listen,
I'm
it
sorry.
depends on
I
the
can't.
deal.
I
I'm
can't.
still.
You got Jared Wiley. You have Noah, and you have Travis.
Jared Wiley's coming
What is
off a torn ACL.
Evan Ingram going to be Irv Smith again?
Still kind of
I
a
want
question mark.
I
The
want
Chiefs
I'm not
like
Levi
trying to
on.
hate Garrett, but I just don't understand the Evan
Chiefs
Ingram
like
hype.
using tight ends. I'm just saying it
I
elevates
know
the floor of the tight end room.
that dude. I saw it when he got
Didn't
brought up by.
Didn't Ingram sign with the Broncos?
I don't know, but I hope to God he's not a Chief.
Pretty sure he signed with the Broncos.
Evan
Look,
Ingram?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
his
Maybe
two best seasons, one of which he had like
Did
60
he sign with the Broncos?
incompletions on targets. He had half the catches he had targets, which is not good. That was his rookie year. He had 1 year with 1,000 yards, and then last year he was worse than Noah Gray from a stat line perspective on catching the football, and they didn't
We
throw
don't need
Noah Gray
tight
the ball at all.
We have future GOAT Jared Wiley.
I don't.
Levi.
It's not even that.
I'm
I
just
just
saying.
don't
I'm
know.
just throwing out some names.
He visited the Broncos, Tom. He didn't
Here's the
sign.
deal.
Broncos. Familiarity with he does have familiarity with Doug P, which
Yeah.
just saying.
Okay.
Saying. Not
Here's
like
my
that
thing.
has any
Evan Ingram had
Levi.
64
We don't really
targets
have to go
and
that deep into
47
Evan
catches
Ingram.
last year.
We don't have to go in that deep into Evan. I'm just telling you names that I wouldn't mind seeing the Chiefs have.
I
I'm not saying he has to be
I
a
just don't get
productive
Evan Ingram. I
person
don't.
for
I didn't. And that's not about Garrett. That's about the other 17 people I saw talk about Evan Ingram like 3 days ago, and could not wrap my head around
I'm just
that
saying.
conversation.
You're adding talent to the tight end room. I'm just after those injuries.
Can he block? Can he run block? Because he wasn't good at it in New York, and he wasn't great at it when he was with Doug Peterson.
Chiefs don't.
And if he's your third or fourth tight end, you have to have him block somebody.
Jody Fortson really wasn't a run blocking tight end. it's
If
Jared
he's
Wiley.
your
Really
third or fourth tight end, he has to block somebody. Jody Fortson was a hybrid wide receiver tight end. I will still never call him a true tight end.
But he was our 3 or 4 tight ends. Jared Wiley's really not.
They also had Blake Bell when they had Jody Fortson, so they didn't have to worry about that.
Noah Gray really isn't that much of a blocker either. Travis Kelce really isn't that much of a blocker. I don't know. I was saying there's not a lot of.
Disagree completely about Travis not being a blocker. It's what he did most of this season.
I'm just saying in general.
But you also had guys that did that role, so then you could use that other guy.
On Wuzerike. Nope. Levi on Wuzerike. That's who I want.
That's you did mention pre-show. Yeah, you did mention in pre-show.
Levi on that is how you say his name. On Wuzu.
Now you've got me trying to figure out who you're talking about.
On that note,
I say Levi on Wuzurike.
Before Tom stutters himself into oblivion here, I think
that is how you say his name. I just wish you would have had more confidence in saying it.
While you two were fighting, I was over here playing Hooked on Phonics with it, trying to get it down. It took me back to my childhood. Mom and Dad are fighting. I'm over here trying to read and learn words. So
it's easier than Kingsley's name, I'd say.
That would be a good pickup.
Suamataia? How is that hard?
It's a lot of syllables. I'm just saying.
But also, Wuzurike went to Allen High School in Allen, Texas. So.
Texas guy. As long as you stay out of there in the offseason, we're all good.
He's not a wide receiver. He'll be fine.
With that being said, that's about everything we've got for you tonight. Appreciate everyone joining us for this very long episode. It's kind of average pace for us at this point. An hour 30 is not bad, but
it's longer than it used to be. It used to be a long episode. The ones we've been doing for the last 3 months have been
it's kind of the norm now if you've been following along. But hey, a lot to talk about, a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We appreciate everyone tuning in. If you've made it this far, we appreciate you tuning in and rocking with us. We will be back soon. We will be back soon with more maybe potentially free agent news. We got to really start jumping into draft stuff here very quickly. So that's going to be a big thing. Tom,
it's about time to pick up all those episodes that are mostly draft talk, right?
Yeah, it's about to be draft talk season. So be prepared for that. Be prepared for a little more off-season movement and whatnot. Be sure to follow us at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any other social media platform. We may or may not be on it as well. So just throwing that out there. I know X, aka Twitter, had quite the day today as soon as free agency dropped. So hopefully that doesn't happen more often. But yeah, either way, you always find somewhere that you can get our content, and especially over on YouTube too. I always want to see our content. Check us out on YouTube. That's a good place to to find all of our stuff. Also, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts from. We will be back later. We will be back later. Maybe this week, if not early next week, with more fun content for you folks. So with that, that's all we've got for you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and we will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.